Hello guys, good day. So for today we are going to discuss about five major accounts. So it is one of the most important things to know when it comes to accounting. No, kasi it's all started here. So hindi natin kayang gawin yung balance sheet natin, yung income statement natin, or other financial statements if wala tayong gaanong idea or hindi natin kabisado yung mga five major accounts na tinatawag. So when we say five major accounts, we are talking about number one natin is asset, liability, owner's equity, income or revenue, and the last is the expenses. So for today, isa-isa natin yan and kikilalanin natin yung mga lima na yan and ano ba yung mga accounts na under kay asset, liability, owner's equity, income, and expenses. So let's start with assets. So when we say assets are economic resources controlled by the enterprise resulting from past events from which future economic benefits are expected to flow to the enterprise. In short, assets, ito yung mga something owned natin, mga pag-aari ng company. Kaya lang take note guys, dapat yung isang bagay na pag-aari natin, dapat meron siyang tinatawag na economic value or meron siyang halaga para matawag natin siya as asset. Okay? So, ang isang bagay na kahit pag-aari mo, if wala na siyang halaga, hindi na siya mako-consider as asset. Like for example, meron kang isang equipment, kaya lang yung equipment natin fully depreciated na, kumbaga wala na siya talagang value, it can no longer be considered as an asset. Okay? So take note of that, dapat meron siyang economic value. So when we say asset, we have two types of assets. So the first one is current asset. So when we say current asset, ito yung ginagamit in everyday transaction ng business. Okay, so take note yung mga current asset, ito yung mga kino-consume natin, pwedeng nauubos or something na merong lumalabas, pumapasok. So mabilis yung rotation niya sa business natin. Say for example, cash, di ba? So pag sinabi natin cash, merong pumapasok, merong lumalabas. Kino-consume natin, pero at the same time, meron din pumapasok. So almost every day involved siya sa rotation ng ating business. That's why cash is considered as current asset. Kapag naman sinabi natin non-current asset, ito yung mga asset natin na fixed. Okay? Kumbaga, nandyan lang siya. Hindi siya nako-consume, hindi siya nauubos. So, yung pinaka-tip natin dyan, they are fixed and almost stable lang siya. Hindi siya labas-pasok sa business natin. Okay? So, let's start with current asset. So, ano ba yung mga under sa current asset natin? So, number one, we have cash. So, includes currencies or negotiables such as bank check, etc. So, siguro naman, when it comes to cash, we don't need to discuss this further kasi alam natin lahat tayo nakakita na ng cash and alam natin what is cash all about. Okay? And another thing pala, when we say cash, involve yung mga bank checks natin and yung mga pera natin sa bangko. So, we have cash on hand, cash on bank na tinatawag natin. Okay? Next, under current asset, we have the receivables. So, these are collectibles from customers, clients, and other persons for the goods, services, or money given by the business. So, when we say receivables, ito yung mga pautang natin. So, we have three types of receivables. So, take note of this kasi maraming nahihirapan or nalilito kung ano ba yung gagamitin nila when it comes to receivables. So, number one receivables natin, we have the accounts receivables. So, kapag sinabi natin accounts receivables, ang inutang niya sa atin is the merchandise o yung binebenta natin na product. Or pwedeng nagpagawa siya ng service sa atin if yung business natin is all about service. Okay, take note, accounts receivable. Kapag naman ang inutang niya sa atin is cash or pera, money, ang ginagamit natin dyan is the loans receivable. Okay? And then, Kapag naman na dumating yung time na hindi niya kayang bayaran and then nagkaroon ng tinatawag na promissory notes, nagiging notes receivable ang ating accounts. So take note of that. We have the accounts receivable kapag ang inutang niya is item, and then kapag naman money, ang ginagamit natin is loans receivable, and kapag na-involve na si promissory notes, notes receivable ang gagamitin natin account. Okay? So merchandise inventory is an account title used to represent the stock of goods available for sale by the business. So when we say merchandise inventory, guys, ito yung mga item na binebenta natin. So merchandise inventory, say for example, nagbebenta tayo ng mga laptops and then mga computers. So yung mga laptops na to, ang tawag natin dyan, merchandise inventory. Next, under current asset, we have the prepaid expenses. This represent advance payments made for the benefits or services to be received by the business in the future. So when we say prepaid expenses, guys, ito yung mga advance payment na ginawa natin. Let's say, for example, sa business natin, nagre-rent lang tayo for the stall. Halimbawa, yung rent natin is 5,000 per month. From January, nagbayad tayo ng good for 1 year. So that is 5,000 times 12, kasi 60,000. So noong January 1 pa lang, nagbayad na tayo ng 60,000 pesos for the whole year na January to December. Binayaran na natin yung rent, pero hindi pa natin nagagamit yung rental. So that 60,000 is considered as prepaid expenses. Okay. So now, under non-current assets natin. Okay, under non-current asset or tinatawag nating fixed asset. Okay. So number 1 is land. Okay. Lot or real estate owned and used by the business on which a building could be constructed. So when we say land, alam naman natin siguro kung ano yung land, di ba? So if ever si owner meron siyang pag-aari na land, it is considered as non-current asset of the business. So take note, guys, all of the non-current asset, they are subject for depreciation except for land, kasi si land, instead of bumaba yung value niya, tumataas siya. So instead of depreciating, nag-appreciate si land. So, other than land, all the non-current assets are subject for depreciation. Next natin, we have the building. So, a structure with roof walls such as house, store, or factory. So, usually yung building, dito yung mga ano natin, no, yung mga store when it comes to business. So, building is also under non-current asset. Equipment. So, the necessary items for a particular purpose. So, when we say equipment, ito yung mga ginagamit nating mga machineries. Let's say, for example, office equipment, mga store equipments natin, yung mga ginagamit natin sa transportation, car, trucks, yung mga services natin, they're considered as equipment. Yung mga gadgets natin, laptop, computer, they are all considered as equipment. Next natin, we have the furniture and fixtures. So, are large items of movable things that are used to furnish an equipment. So, under furniture and fixtures naman, dito naman pumapasok yung mga tables, chairs, mga sala set, mga cabinets natin na ginagamit natin, usually pan-decorate and pang-entertain din sa mga customers natin. Okay, so that's it for our asset, no? So if ever you have other item or other asset na hindi natin nabanggit, and then gusto nyong malaman if it is under current or non-current asset, feel free to comment down in this video para ma-check natin or masagutan natin under what type of asset is that example. Okay? So now let's go to the liabilities. So, our present obligations resulting from past events and whose settlement will cause an outflow from the resources of the enterprise. So, kanina asset, ito yung mga pag-aari natin owned by the company. This time, liabilities, ito yung naman yung owed obligation, utang natin. Okay? So, syempre, hindi natin may iwasan sa company na humingi ng tulong or mangutang sa third party para ma-shoulder natin yung mga needs ng ating business. So, it is normal for a business na magkaroon tayo ng mga liabilities. So, under liabilities, we also have two types. Okay? So number one is the current liability. When we say current liability, it is short-term obligation payable within or less than 1 year. So take note of that, no? Kapag 1 year ang term natin or less, it is considered as a short-term or current liability. So under current liability, we have the accounts payable. So what is accounts payable? It is purchase of goods and services on credit supported by the oral or implied promise of the business. So ito yung mga inutang nating goods, no? Sa isang company, kumbaga credit term ito, hindi natin sila binayaran ng cash. So instead of recording a cash, nagre-record tayo ng accounts. Kumbaga may utang tayo kung saan natin binili ang bagay na yan. Next natin, we have the loan payable. Is a liability to pay a bank or a financing institution for amount of money borrowed by the business. So kanina, ang inutang natin is item. This time, nangutang tayo money. That's why we uses loan payable. And again, guys, take note, when we say current liability, ang term niya is 1 year or shorter. Ibig sabihin, accounts payable or loans payable, pwede siyang ma-considered as non-current asset if yung term niya is more than 1 year. So take note of that, Pero kapag wala tayong pinag-uusapan na terms of payment, okay? So yung default niya ni loan at saka accounts payable is current liability. Next natin, utilities payable. So usually utilities payable is a liability to pay utility companies like telephone, electricity, and water service received from them. Okay, so usually yung utilities natin, they are just good for 1 month. Siyempre, di ba, puputulan tayo dyan ng electric bill or telephone, internet, kapag hindi natin yan binayaran agad. So usually utilities payable, they are just good for 1 month. So they are all considered as current liability. Okay? So next, we also have the interest payable. So interest payable, yun yung interest kung nag-loan tayo. So siyempre, magbabayad din tayo ng interest. And also, we have the salaries payable kapag babayaran na natin yung ating mga empleyado. So siyempre, yung empleyado natin, no? Usually 15 and 30 nagsasahod dyan. And now, let's proceed to non-current liability. So kapag sinabi natin non-current liability, long-term obligations to. So these are payable more than 1 year. So kanina, current asset natin, 1 year or below. This time, non-current liability, 1 year and up. So yung naging example natin kanina, si loans payable, kung wala tayong pinag-uusapan na terms of payment, loans payable is considered as current liability. Pero kapag sinabi natin loans payable, payable in 2 years, so si loans payable, nag-ship siya as non-current liability. So take note nyo na mas mabisa yung terms of payment to identify or to classify what type of liability is that account. Next tayo, notes payable, which is issued to creditor and evidenced by promissory note. So kapag naging involved na si promissory note, guys, ang ginagamit na nating term, si notes payable. And knowing promissory note, yan ay promise to pay. Kumbaga, dumating na yung due na kailangan mo nang magbayad sa dapat mong bayaran, kaya lang hindi mo siya nabayaran dahil wala ka pang pambayad. So, instead of paying that liability, ang gagawin mo, gagawa ka ng promissory note. Kapag nagawa mo na yung promissory note, so yung utang mo, mag-shift na siya as notes payable. Mortgage payable, which is obligation secured by real property of the debtor business. Okay? So, when we say mortgage payable, we're talking about real property. So, usually, mga long-term to, no? Kaya si mortgage payable is considered as non-current liability. Next, we have the bonds payable, which is a long-term promise, usually 5 to 10 years, supported by a formal contract containing the face value of the bond. Okay? So, bond payable, usually, ang nag-i-issue nito is yung mga corporation, mga hospital, governments, kumbaga, to raise funds. Yeah? So, usually, yung pinaka-short term na ginagawa talaga ng mga corporation na to pay the said bonds payable is 5 years with interest yun. Okay? So, bonds payable is considered as non-current liability kasi pang long term talaga yung mga bonds payable. So, next we have the owner's equity. So, pangatlo na tayo, no? So, when we say owner's equity, represent the claim of the owner over the asset of the business after the liabilities have been deducted. So, kapag liabilities, ito yung mga inutang natin, di ba? So, coming from the third party. This time, when we say owner's equity, ito naman yung mga pera or any asset coming from the pocket of the owner. Ito yung sariling bulsa or investment ng ating owner sa business niya. Next natin, we have the drawing or withdrawal. Ito yung karang kabaliktaran naman ng owner's equity. So, kung kanina, si owner's equity, nag-invest tayo ng asset for the sake of the business. This time naman, when we say drawing or withdrawal, kumuha naman tayo ng pera from the business and ginamit natin for our personal use. So, ganun siya. Kabaliktaran siya ng owner's equity or capital. Next, we have the revenues also or income. So, when we say revenues, parang synonyms lang siya ng income. So, when we say income, sabi niya, are the earnings arising from the main line of operation of the business. This may be the earning from rendering of services or selling of goods. So, ito na yung kita natin na tinatawag, di ba? So, kapag nagbenta tayo, meron tayong tinatawag na kita. And yung kinita natin yon from our sales is considered as revenue or income na tinatawag. So, we have different type of terminology or accounts na ginagamit natin when it comes to income. So, number one is the sales. So, this represent the earnings made by any business involved in selling goods or merchandise. Okay? So, yung business mo is selling goods. Nagbebenta ka ng product. So, kapag nakabenta ka, so yung benta mo na yon, i-record mo siya as sales or kita mo. Okay? So, sales is used for the selling goods or merchandise type of business. Next, we have the service revenue. This refers to the earnings made by any business involved in rendering service. So, if ever naman service type ang business mo, let's say for example, spa, car wash. So, yung mga kita mo dyan, i-record mo sila as service revenue. Next, we have the professional piece. This represents earnings made by professionals or experts from rendering services to their clients. So, let's say, for example, ikaw na nanonood ngayon, dumating yung time na naging certified public accountant ka na, and then nakagawa ka ng sarili mong accounting firm. So, lahat ng mga client mo na nagpapagawa sa'yo, syempre, magbabayad dyan. And yung mga earnings mo sa kanila, i-record mo sila as professional fees. Okay. Next natin, other term, we have the interest income. So, if you are involved, say for example, in a bank or any lending business, so yan yung gagamitin mo, interest income. Next, we have the rent income. So, kung ang business mo naman or apartment, nagpaparent ng mga bahay. So, syempre, ang gagamitin mo to classify or to record your income ay rent income. Okay? So, take note of that, ha? Next natin, our last from our 5 major accounts are expenses. So, syempre, sabi niya, are the costs being incurred by the business in generating revenues. So, syempre, hindi naman puro kita. Kapag nag-create tayo ng business, for sure, meron tayong tinatawag na gastos. Diba? So, yun yung mga tinatawag nating expenses. So, ano-ano ba yung mga different type or par expenses? So, number one, the cost of sales. So, when we say cost of sales, ito yung mga ginastos natin to build or to have an item to sell. Okay? So, let's say, for example, nagbebenta tayo ng tinapay. Okay? So, lahat ng binili natin for the ingredients to create that tinapay, yung mga harina, sugar, and other ingredients na kailangan dun sa tinapay, they are considered as cost of sales. Salaries expense, so ito yung ginagamit natin for the payroll of our regular employees. So usually, these are the higher position when it comes to job description. So ito yung mga managers, supervisors, and others. Wages expense, ginagamit naman to para sa mga part-time or yung mga hindi regular, yung mga daily rate na mga employees natin. So, ito yung mga tinatawag nating rank and file, di ba? Kumbaga, sa baba, yung mga nasa baba. Rent expense, ito naman yung ginagamit natin to record our rent kung nagre-rent tayo ng ating stall para sa business natin. Okay? Next, we have the supplies expense. So, dito naman pumapasok yung mga supplies natin like bond paper, ball pen, pencil na ginagamit natin usually sa mga accountant na kagaya nyo in the future. Other expenses, we also have insurance expense. So, yan, yung mga life insurance or other insurance para sa mga hospitalization, yan, dyan pumapasok yung insurance expense. Utilities expense, ito naman yung mga ano natin, di ba? Yung mga electric bills, telephone bills, internet. So, dyan pumapasok yung mga yan. Bad debts expense. So, when we say bad debts expense, ito yung mga expected na hindi na magbabayad ng mga receivables natin or mga pautang. Say for example, we have an account receivable and then sa tingin natin hindi na magbabayad yun, no? Yung pinautang natin. So kapag palagay natin na hindi na magbabayad yung pinautang natin na yun, halimbawa may nangyaring masama or pumunta sa ibang bansa, hindi na nagparamdam, so, syempre, di ba, or malabo na talagang magbayad yun. That's why, i-consider natin siya na bad debts expenses. Next natin, we have the depreciation expense. So, syempre, yung mga equipment natin, usually yung mga non-current asset natin, nagbababa yung value niyan. So, yun yung tinatawag natin depreciation expense kapag yung value niya bumababa. Okay? So, it is also considered as expenses for our company. So that's it for the discussion of 5 major accounts. So hopefully meron kayong konting natutunan and na-add sa existing knowledge natin when it comes to my 5 major accounts. No? So try natin. Check natin ngayon kung medyo naklaruhan na ba kayo. Kaya nyo bang i-identify yung mga accounts if under sila ng asset, liabilities, or owner's equity. So bago natin tapusin to, let's have an activity. Okay? So, magbibigay ako ng accounts. So, what we are going to do is just to classify the following accounts. So, under ba siya ng current asset, non-current asset, current liability, non-current liability, owner's equity, income, or expense. Okay? So, let's start with number 1. Okay, cash. Okay, so, if ang sagot mo ay current asset, tama ka. Okay? Because cash is under current asset. Next, we have the accounts payable. So, kapag ang sagot mo ay current liability, you are correct because accounts payable is under current liability, especially kapag walang terms of payment na involved. Revenue. So, the correct answer for revenue is income. Okay, so kung income ang sagot mo, tama ka dyan. Next natin, land. Okay. So, land is under non-current asset. So, hopefully, nakuha mo yung land kasi napakadali naman nun. Next, we have the professional fees. So, that is under income also, no? So, that is fees. Kumbaga, earnings natin yan as professional. Next, capital. Okay, so capital is another term or parang synonym siya ng owner's equity. So, dapat ang naging answer mo dyan is owner's equity. Accounts payable in 2 years. Okay, so we all know accounts payable is under current liability. Kaya lang this time meron siyang terms of payment. So payable in 2 years. So sabi ko kanina, mas mabisa or malakas yung power ng terms of payment. So yung 2 years natin is more than 1 year yon. So si accounts payable, mag-shift siya to ngayon to a non-current liability. Furnitures and fixtures. Okay, so this is a fixed asset, kaya under siya ng non-current asset. Next, we have the merchandise inventory. So, merchandise inventory is under current asset, no? So, ito yung mismong stock natin or yung item na binebenta. Gain on sale of assets. Okay, by the word itself, gain, no? So, ibig sabihin, it is income kasi nag-earn tayo, kasi gain, di ba? So, it is considered as income. Equipments. Okay, another fixed asset. So, equipments are considered as non-current asset. Rent expense. Okay, meron na siyang keyword, expense, no? So, syempre, it is already an expense. Loans payable. Okay, so dahil wala siyang terms, yung yung pinaka default niya is the current liability. Interest receivable. Okay, interest receivables or receivables considered yan as current asset. Utilities payable. Utilities payable, usually they are just good for 1 month, so considered yan as current liability. How about loans receivable? Okay, when we are talking about receivables, accounts man yan, loans man yan, notes, they are all considered as current asset. Sales. Okay, sales is income, di ba? Kasi benta natin yan. Prepaid expenses. Okay, so when we say prepaid expenses, these are the advance payments. So, binayaran na natin pero hindi pa natin nagagamit yung binayad natin. That's why they are still considered as our asset. Current asset ang tamang sagot yan. Okay, thank you very much for listening. No? So, nagkaroon na naman tayo ng bagong learnings for today about the 5 major accounts. So, guys, if ever you want to have a discussion for a specific topic, especially sa basic accounting natin, Pub M1 and Pub M2, just comment down below para magawa natin ng video for a short discussion. Again, thank you very much and keep safe. God bless you all.